This is Meat Mitch, and you're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Start
the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Good evening and welcome to the really big Barbecue Central Show, a show where we talk about all of the things that are important to the world of barbecue and grilling. The show originating from Rock and Roll Hall of Fame City, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio. The barbecue capital of the North Coast. I am your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evening's live fire fun and throughout the show. If you want to jump in the show this evening, here's your contact info to do it.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at bbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you didn't get the newsletter. Coming up in about 13 minutes from now is the second Tuesday of a month, and that brings a visit from the creator of the most heavily trafficked barbecue and grilling website on the face of the earth, Meathead! From AmazingRibs.com. There he is in the green room and ready to go. After Meathead, let me pimp him a little bit. Last month we had a rather looming technical issue which took the balance of his segment. We were going to be doing a little myth busting, which we love to do with Meathead, which he loves to do, hence that fabulous book that he wrote a number of years ago, To Raging Accolades and Success and Riches. Water pans, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, and boy, I can't tell you the number of times, and I'll bring this up with Meathead when we talk to him here in a few minutes, with people who have water pans. Traditionally, you'll find them in upright smokers, cabinet-style smokers. Not always. People will drop bread pans full of water in their offset pits, things like this. But the thing that I find to be the most annoying about people talking about their lovely water pans, most of the time, they're full of it when they're talking about, and the increased humidity in the cooking environment, my cooker. No. But we'll get into that a little later. It can happen, but most of the time it's not happening. I'll leave it up to you in the instant chat before Meathead comes in. Why only sometimes can you have a really humid cooking environment when a lot of cookers have water pans? Think about it and then make your guesses. We'll see who's smart and who isn't as the show moves forward. Then after Meathead, 35 past the hour, we would usually find a visit from Robert Moss. He is unable to make it this evening, doing a bountiful amount of traveling across this great land of ours, but filling in for him, a writer nonetheless, a good friend of ours from the great state of Texas, and the food writer, and I think he does sports too sometimes, from the San Antonio Express News, Chuck Blount will rejoin the show. Well, what's to talk about in Texas? We will quickly review if smoked hamburgers continues to be a thing on barbecue restaurant menus down there in Texas. We'll also talk about how La Barbecue seems to be the place to go to thieve briskets by the thousands of dollars worth and see what's happening with that story. Also, we'll talk about how much brisket per pound is costing out there, and it will blow your mind. And are people paying it, or are restaurants finally feeling it in not only volume of guests being served, but where it counts, top-line revenue? So Chuck will be in there to wrap the first hour with us. Then we'll move to the second hour, and it will be a visit from one of the 4 Barbecue Hall of Famers. This will now complete 50% of that task, getting them in, interviewing them about this lifetime achievement. Lee Ann Whippen will join the show. So right off the bat, we will talk about the achievement, getting in, what some of her fellow Hall of Fame members mean to her, or if any have stand out above the crowd. And then after that, we won't spend a ton of time on that. We will do a origin story of one Lee Ann Whippen, and it's unique because Lee Ann Whippen has been with this show pretty much from the beginning, even when it was just a podcast associated with one of the most popular episodes ever in the history of the show, which was the very first brisket roundtable competition style. Her, Jim Minion, Fast Eddie, and who am I not thinking of right off the top of my head? It was, sorry. It's Ray Lampy. You ever heard of Dr. Barbecue? Sorry, Ray. Had a senior moment. So she was a part of that. Believe it or not, back in 2006, when I asked people if they were using Wagyu beef, they all laughed at it like it was the biggest joke ever. Who would use that? It's outrageous. Nobody's using that. That'll never be a thing. Well, how times have changed. So Lee Ann Whippen will take the balance of the second hour, maybe a little bit over into the 11 o'clock hour, but we'll see about that. Don't forget, you can follow me socially, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and the Snaps. At BBQ Central Show is the handle for live video feed. You can go to Facebook and Twitch /BBQ Central Show. Also over on YouTube /RD Rempe, automatically archived as the show ends, so you can get it at your convenience as well. And, of course, we are live audibly on Clubhouse as well. So let's start here this evening. Many of you have emailed in over the past week asking if the chocolate bar incident of 2020 has been rectified on the chocolate bar side. Have they gotten in contact with me to discuss the well-done steak controversy? The long and the short of it is no, they have not.
Get that big stuff out of here.
In full disclosure, I didn't expect them to get in contact with me, even though I have tagged them in every way possible on every social platform to let them know what kind of douchebaggery was taking place when we were there as patrons almost 2 weeks ago. But I did post the video, as I had mentioned on social media, to warn those who might be coming in town and considering this place to eat to think twice about it, especially if you are a well-done steak fan. I don't know if we have a lot of those here on the show, but I was with a well-done steak fan when we went there almost 2 weeks ago. Here's the bottom line. I reached out to the main food writer here in Cleveland, no names please, rule number 1 to the show, and I asked him if he had ever experienced this type of behavior anywhere in Cleveland. And he said, Greg, the real tragedy here is that you decided to go to the chocolate bar when there are so many better options right here in Cleveland and so close. Enough said. However, I will report back with any updates as they happen. Feedback from the show last week. Michelle in Phoenix writing in, "Hi, Greg. Longtime fan of the show. Finally compelled to write in on your well-done steak rant last week. I think it was a bit classless for you to go that hard at one of your local businesses. If it were me, I just would have said nothing at all and not gone back. Just my 2 cents. Love the show. Regards, Michelle." Michelle, thank you for your 2 cents. Nobody asked. It's entertainment. And I'm here to warn people as they come to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city about places that might decide how they want to serve your food that you're paying for. I want to make people aware of that. So that's why I did it. Continue to love the show, but you're wrong. Jason in Missouri writing in, "Greg, I know you are an audio freak when it comes to the show. Allow me to tell you that the show this past Tuesday might have been the pinnacle of sound in all the history of the show. Each guest sounded like they were right in the studio with you. Maybe some think your standard of audio for each guest is a bit overboard. But as a longtime listener, I can tell you I really appreciate it. I listen to plenty of other podcasts that don't even approach your sound standard. Keep up the great work. Regards, Jason." Jason, thank you. Richard in New York City. "Greg, Am I the only one? Her trouble with talking this evening right out of the gate, but hopefully that clears up. Let me try again. Greg, am I the only one who heard you name drop Michael Simon like it was just common occurrences? Dude, how cool is that? I wish I could message people like that on the regular. Love the show, and screw those people at the chocolate bar. Regards, Rich. Rich, you are right on both accounts. Very cool to be me sometimes. And in that occasion, very cool to be me. And you're right. Screw, actually, just the manager, not anybody else. The food was actually serviceable. The server was spectacular. But screw the house manager. I'm with you, Rich. Meathead is in the green room, probably wondering, what's all this chocolate bar stuff? What's the first thing you think about when you think of Maine? Well, here at Barbecue Central, I can tell you that it would not be barbecue until now. Bub and Mothers is a veteran-owned dry rub company with a Maine attitude and a mission. What exactly does that mean? Let me break it down for you. Gourmet. Bub and Mother's spice blends have been handcrafted using 100% natural ingredients. Each batch is sampled by the founder himself, John Furman, before any bottles are shipped to the stores or their fans. These rubs won the International Flavor Awards 2 years in a row, were used as guest judge gifts on the show Beat Bobby Flay, have been used in competition, resulting in multiple calls. Dare I say grand championships? I won't say it. Attitude. Maine folks don't like buying things that can only be used for one purpose. So while these rubs were blended to be used on anything that used to have fur, fins, or feathers, the fans send in photos, recipes, and emails using the rubs on everything from avocado toast to fried zucchini. One of the restaurants that we supply uses the rubs to make different cocktails. Yes, many of these recipes available on the website, bubandmothers.com. That's B-U-B and the letter N, M-U-T-H-A-S, bubandmothers.com. Finally, the mission. As a veteran-owned company, Bub and Mothers works with area veteran charities, donating a part of every single sale. In addition, as they grow, the commitment is to try and hire area vets to full-time positions with the company. In addition, any order over $50 gets you a free t-shirt. No codes to enter, no coupons needed when you check out. Just tell them which shirt and what size, and put that info in the note section at checkout. The t-shirt, rubs, other blends are at bubandmothers.com. That's B-U-B, the letter N, M-U-T-H-A-S, bubandmothers.com. And tell them the Barbecue Central show and Greg Rempe sent you. Maybe they'll even hook you up with something a little extra. Who knows? bubandmothers.com. And we're back with Meathead right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the #1 most downloaded barbecue and grilling podcast anywhere. The Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
This portion of the show being brought to you by cookinpellets.com, your #1 source for quality wood pellets for all your pellet-driven cookers. Visit cookinpellets.com for more information or to purchase. You can also peruse that website to see all of the other goodies they have to make your smoked meats a little more smokier. Why not? All right, let's not waste any time because that's all we did last month. Let's go to the hotline and welcome back the creator of the most heavily trafficked barbecue and grilling website on the face of the earth, Meathead. Hey, Meathead.
Hello, Greg, and hello, Centralites.
We are rocking and rolling.
I'm back.
I am burning.
Sorry about last month.
Oh, well, look, every once in a while we have a little bit of an issue. We've worked through it. In fact, might I say, through the issues of last month, we've bettered the process and might now have a better overall sound product and instructions now being sent out to every guest with screenshots.
I followed your instructions. I came in here 15 minutes early and went through them step by step. And we are live, and we are here. And it's worth noting, in the 10 plus years or so that you and I have been talking once a month, last week was the first time we have gone down in flames.
That's right. Technically, of course, there was that one time that you slept through the segment, but we won't mention that. We won't mention that. That never happened. All right, Meathead from AmazingRibs.com joining us here on the show. Before we talk about water pans, are you watching Barbecue USA with Michael Simon?
I haven't yet, but I intend
Still
to, especially since he was on Jeff Tracy's show recently. Jeff has an over-the-air broadcast, and you know Jeff and you know Michael, and he said his favorite book is my book.
Meathead or Michael Simon said that?
Michael Simon, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that? So that's very cool.
I can't believe Jeff Tracy got Michael Simon on a show.
I've been really humping on
wow,
on my
look
new
at you.
book.
But really humping? Good job.
Working on my new book. And in fact, you mentioned Maine. What do you think of Maine? You don't think of Maine for barbecue. I do, because barbecue lobster, grilled lobster, is better than boiled or steamed lobster.
Of course.
When you boil lobster, water is a solvent. It extracts flavor from the meat. It does make it more tender. And if you grill lobster, you split it in half and put it the meat side down, you'll get a much more flavorful piece of meat. It's a little chewier, but it's much better in my world. And in fact, Friday, I'm doing 2 lobster recipes for photography for my book.
All right. Meathead joining us from AmazingRibs.com. You know, of course, I want to dive down that book rabbit hole quicker than anybody else, but I'm going to not do that this evening
It's
because
moving,
we have
dude.
things.
I'm meeting 3 days a week with my photo stylist, and we are deep into photography, and it's coming out good.
Tonight, we do a little myth busting because that's what everybody likes Meathead to do, myth busting. And we are myth busting water pans and humidity. They don't do what you think they do, at least most of the time. So I will now turn the floor and the stage and the mic and all that over to you.
Well, you've already stolen my thunder. Let's divide the topic into 2 parts.
All right.
Drip pans and water pans.
Okay.
Now, drip pans, we'll take the easy path first. Drip pans are a pan you place under food with a little bit of water in there to catch the drippings. Now, for example, my turkey recipe uses, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, folks. Greg is showing it. But I put a pan under my turkey filled with chopped carrots and celery and apples and herbs and a bottle of wine. And the drippings from the turkey go into that pan and they build a stock. And I drain that pan, filter out all the stuff, and you end up with this incredible stock. And you can do it with a roast beef. You can do it with your brisket, and you can put beans under there. So you can put a pan underneath your meat or vegetables and catch the drippings. And that's a really good technique. It can also sit between the meat and the fire so that it becomes essentially a heat blocker so that you can cook with indirect heat if you need to, if your configuration doesn't allow you to. Also, there's this, he's also showing a picture of the slow and sear, which is an insert into the Weber kettle, which has a dam, a water dam between the charcoal and the indirect zone, and that puts humidity in the air. So now let's talk about water pans and humidity. First of all, what's really important to understand is that when you're burning charcoal or you're burning gas or you're burning logs, you're using a lot of oxygen. There is a massive amount of air moving in and out of your cooker. One of my readers, actually of a scientific bent, has a Peoria offset cooker, and he measured he was cooking at 250 degrees. The airflow through that unit was 268 cubic feet per minute.
Wow.
That's a lot of air. And in fact, if you've got a chimney, you can put your hand above there and you can feel it's blowing through there. So for a water pan to build enough humidity inside that cooker, it would have to be massive, and it would have to be hot, and it would have to be steaming like crazy. The water that evaporates from that water pan is minuscule because it's just not boiling in most cases. And it can't in any way raise the relative humidity of the air flowing through there. Not on this planet, in any case. It is not a humidity adding device. It doesn't add moisture to the meat. And in fact, there's moisture evaporating from your meat. Make believe you got a brisket in there. It's 18 pounds. It's 75% water. That's maybe 15 pounds of water. It's evaporating, and it's putting a lot of moisture into the atmosphere, and it's going right out the stack. And that's why your brisket shrinks as you cook it. And there's no way you can stop it unless you can get the humidity up to 100%. And there are gadgets that do that. There's a gadget called the CVAP, which a lot of commercial restaurants use when they want to hold a brisket for hours and hours after they've cooked it. They'll put the brisket into the CVAP, which has 100% humidity, and it keeps it warm, and it prevents the moisture from evaporating and preserves the quantity of meat so that if they're delivering a half pound of meat, they're not losing a lot of money by evaporation. But your water pan does not humidify the atmosphere or keep the meat from drying out. What the water pan does do, and this is really cool, is it helps make your meat smokier. Now, you think about this. If you take a brisket or a ribs or whatever out of the fridge at 38 degrees, that's what your fridge should be. 38, between 33 and 40 degrees. It should be about 38. 38 degrees. And you put it in a smoker, let's say, that's rolling along at 225. And you've got a water pan underneath it. The moisture that comes out of that water pan is going to condense on that meat, just like the steam does on the mirror when you get out of the shower. That condenses on the meat and wets the surface slightly. And when the surface is wet, it's sticky, and smoke sticks to it better. So it creates evaporative cooling, and it also makes the meat sticky and gets it smokier. And that's another reason why when you take meat out of the fridge, you should not let it sit around at room temp, because if it sits around at room temp, it warms up. And you want to put cold meat into a smoker because it's going to get more condensation on it and attract more smoke.
Could we measure this or do something statistically where we put a, hygrometer in some kind of safe hygrometer inside of a bullet and fill the water pan with sand or foil balls, and then fill the water pan with foil balls and put them up against each other to see if there's a real noticeable spike in humidity, even if the water's not boiling? Because that's always been my main contention, is if the water's not at a rolling boil, then it is only a heat sink and a fat drip catcher, and that's about it. Now, in a Myron Mixon cooker, where that fire is right underneath the water pan, you can see it plenty of times where his water in the water pan is at a rolling boil. That's why you have to have a water connection on the side of that cooker to keep it continually filled up. Otherwise, that thing would be dry as a bone after a couple hours of having that fire right underneath it. But otherwise, in a bullet smoker, Weber Smoky Mountain, charbroil, what have you, at best, it's a heat sink. It's certainly not something that's just puking humidity into the air.
Well, you've just used another magic word, and that's another very important task that the water pan performs, and that is it's a heat sink. And what Greg means by heat sink is it absorbs energy. The water cannot rise above 212 degrees. That's its boiling point. It can only go to 212, and it stays there. Your meat cannot go above 212 because it's mostly water. So as the water pan goes up to 212, it tempers the energy coming from your smoker. And that's why the Weber Smoky Mountain has a water pan above the charcoal. Not just so much to add moisture to the atmosphere, but because it tempers the energy of the charcoal and keeps the temperature down, keeps it low and slow. So that's a very important thing. Yes, I'm sure one could do that measurement. And that's the other thing. A lot of people over on the Weber Smoky Mountain sites, they want to talk about putting sand or dirt or gravel or terracotta into their pans. They do a decent job of acting as a heat sink and stabilizing, but they don't stabilize as low as 212. Sand can go much hotter than that. And the other thing is what should you put in your water pan? There's a reason we call it a water pan. You can put apple juice, wine, beer, whiskey, whatever you want in there. And the flavor compounds in wine, whiskey, apple juice are measured in parts per million. There's very little flavor compound. If you want to add flavor to your meat, sprinkle it on with a rub or a sauce. Nothing in that water pan is going to contribute to the flavor. You can throw onions in the water. You can do whatever you want. It just is not, under any circumstances, going to alter the meat in any significant way.
What other things do we need to know about water pans?
Well, they're a good idea. And a lot of people wonder if they should use them, for example, on pellet smokers. And I recommend them whenever you can. A, because they're a heat sink. B, because they do put some degree of moisture onto the surface of the meat, and that helps smoke stick. But they are not keeping the moisture in the meat, making the meat moisture, and preventing evaporation.
Have you seen folks that have some pretty decent offset pits? And I mean real offset cookers like Close, Gator Pit, Pits and Spits, things like this, where they might have an open baffle from the firebox into the main cooking chamber, and then they'll throw either a water pan on the top rack closest, or they might even butt it up against the baffle underneath the cooking chamber or underneath the grates themselves to try and temper that heat coming in from the firebox. Does that actually work?
Yeah, I've seen that on reverse flows too. Reverse flows have like a false bottom underneath the meat, and there's a essentially a duct between the false bottom and the actual bottom of the tube, and they put water pans on top of the duct or the false bottom. It serves that effect, but again, it is not significant. I mean, man, offsets in particular. If you look at an offset that is running smooth, making blue smoke, burning logs, the door to the combustion chamber is almost always wide open. I mean, they need air. I mean, they just gulp air down. They are drinking air like a sailor just landing in port. They are just slurping oxygen, and they are spitting it out through the chimney, and it's just blowing through there like a tornado.
Let me ask you a completely different question. This has been raging over social media over the last month. You're probably not prepared for this, but you can talk about it because you're the expert. I got into it unknowingly with some guy named Dick Paste on the Ticker Talkers. And a month and change ago, I asked Malcolm Reed if he had ever used mayo on brisket. No, I asked him if he had ever used mayo as a binder on beef. I didn't even specifically say brisket. And then Deuce Raymond, who you know, he's the nephew to Famous Dave, of course, he said, hey, I'm going to make a video of this. Try it out. Sounds interesting. He had mentioned me in the video, maybe made it sound like that this was like my thing. Maybe not. But then all of a sudden some guy picks up on it. I'm the one that started this, blah, blah, blah. My name's Dickie Paste, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. And then my pal Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue, a budding YouTube sensation, made another video he was just on last week talking about it. What do you think about mayo as a binder on brisket?
Well, let's just talk about mayo in general. I don't know who this Dickie Pace guy is, But I've been talking about mayo on fish since about 2010. It's in my book, which was published in 2016. So, and I got the idea from a fish restaurant who was cooking fish that was really beautiful, and the skin was intact. And I was asking him, how do you keep the skin from sticking? And he says, you don't use oil, you use mayonnaise. Now, mayonnaise is mostly oil. It's an emulsion of oil and eggs and a little lemon juice and some salt. And that's pretty much it. So mayo, if you think of it as thick oil, it does a decent job of sealing in moisture. It does a decent job of keeping meat, especially good for fish, from sticking. And what's ironic is mayo doesn't have a lot of flavor on its own. And when you put it on food on the grill, much of it melts and drips off. You can't taste that you've used mayo. I've not tried it on a steak or a brisket or anything like that. I know Clint Cantwell, who's our general manager and writes for my website and is really smart. He likes it as a binder. The whole idea of a binder is if you've got a piece of meat and you want to put a rub or a spice on it, you want it to stick, and you don't want that expensive rub or spice to splatter and fall off. So what a lot of people do is they put something on there as a binder. Mustard is a popular one. It doesn't add mustard flavor. Again, the flavor compounds in mustard, it's a small amount of mustard powder, which is ground up mustard seed with either water or vinegar or both. And again, much of it drips off. If you want a mustard flavor, go get Coleman's mustard in a can and sprinkle that stuff on. That's pretty damn potent. That's what's in your Chinese mustard, in the Chinese carryouts. Mayonnaise works the same. Ketchup, you could use ketchup. I just typically, I will go over to the sink and wet my hands under the running water and just pat the meat with water and sprinkle the rub on, and most of it sticks, and away I go. Water works just fine as a binder to hold it on.
Well, now we know, and I have to say, Joe did a great job of breaking down the whole process last week. And in the final analysis, he said he was a big fan. He thought that the bark was some of the best that he's ever done. It developed nicely, but it never got really hard or really crispy. It was something that it was agreeable to his palate. So I think we're putting a nice bow on the mayo as a binder on brisket trend that I started, of course, and nobody else did. So, and of course, now we've debunked all the myths and you know everything about water pans. In the meantime, Meathead is working on this book that he's talking about. Maybe we'll talk about that next month. And if you have any questions, you go to AmazingRibs.com. But on the second Tuesday of every month, you come right here to the Barbecue Central show and listen to Meathead talk all about hot live fire barbecue and grilling shenanigans and tomfoolery with me, your humble host. Meathead, always appreciate the time, and we will see you in September.
See you in September.
That's right. Meathead might be for season 4 of the Barbecue Central show's American Idol. I mean, who's about that? I'm about that. Meathead likes to sing, obviously. He's a crooner. Chuck Blount is ready to go in the green room. Before we do that, Green Mountain Grills is making some of the best pellet cookers out there on the market today. You have 2 different lines to choose from, a choice line, a prime line. Choice line, not a lot of options there, right? You have a Daniel Boone size, which is pretty much going to accommodate most size families, especially if you're not throwing huge parties. If you do throw huge parties and you want to save some money, buy a pair of them. It's not going to break the bank. You don't have app connectivity. You don't have Wi-Fi. You don't have internal meat probes. You just have a really solid cooker that can go out there on your patio, on your deck, something you can be proud of. Now, if you want to spend a couple $100 extra more dollars, you want some lights inside there so you can see during the nighttime. If you want some peek-in windows, if you want Wi-Fi, if you want to be able to control that cooker from an app, Prime Line, that's what you want. Best to see them in person. Look at them online, of course. Wet your whistle. But best to see them in person. Only sold through dealers. So go to greenmountaingrills.com. Find a dealer near you. And then check them out. Ask the salesperson about all the stuff that you need to know about. He'll help you get outfitted with the one that best fits your needs. And then you know everything about it. Get it home. You'll have success right away. If you need some accessories, if they don't have them at the dealer, you can go to greenmountaingrills.com, buy all the accessories that you need there, and complete the GMG experience. Might be a collector's item sooner than later. Maybe. Depending. I don't know. But if you're in the market, why not give them a shout? greenmountaingrills.com. That's greenmountaingrills.com. And we're back with Chuck Blount right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we thank Meathead for joining us last segment in his monthly spot, second Tuesday of the month. This portion of the show being brought to you by Fireboard. Monitor up to 6 different temperatures simultaneously. Connect to Wi-Fi for cloud-based monitoring or connect via Bluetooth. Don't forget that new predictive portion that's been rolled out as well. If you have Alexa or the Google Assistant in your home, you're in luck. Fireboard, fully integrated with both. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. My next guest is the barbecue and food writer for the San Antonio News Express. We have a lot to talk about, so we race to the hotline and welcome back friend of the show, Chuck Blount. Hey, Chuck.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for having me.
I am
good to hear from you.
Appreciative that you are making time for the show, and a little bit of a last-second type theme here, but always appreciate the Texas point of view. There's always things going on in the barbecue and grilling world when it comes to Texas, of course. Texas fancying itself as the Shangri-La of barbecue across this great country and globe of ours. First things first, Chuck, the last time you were on, we had quite a conversation about smoked hamburgers becoming a menu at barbecue restaurants. We talked at length about it, why it was going to be a good thing. And then right at the end, we said, is this thing going to be long-lasting? Is it going to be a thing ongoing? Or is it going to be a flash in the pan? So a couple months removed from that initial conversation that we had, how are you seeing smoked hamburgers on barbecue menus?
Well, it's still in its infancy. I can tell you that I personally am doing it now. I'll smoke the burgers and everything like that, but it's still in its infancy, and I don't know why, because it should be something that I think should have really taken off even more than it has. And I can't just speak for Texas. I would speak for the entire barbecue community, and that, you know, this is a huge window of potential that, you know, people should start doing, and, you know, in their own personal cooking and definitely in the restaurant scene. But yeah, we're still not quite there yet, but I think it is going to be something that is going to be in the next big wave of barbecue.
We're coming to the end of summer. Well, I mean, not for Texas, of course, but here in Cleveland, it's bound to be winter here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. If we're getting it to the end of what traditional summer is, Labor Day will typically signify the end of barbecue and grilling season for a lot of folks that actually put their grills away, if you can believe it. So if it's not happening now, does that mean it's going to happen Memorial Day next year or through next summertime?
I really don't know, because I think we've had 60 days in a row of like 100-degree temperatures in San Antonio. So like, it's like summer never is going to end. So I can't speak for the rest of the country, but it, you know, what the reason, I mean, the flavor profile that obviously, you know, we always smoke brisket, you know, we smoke the ribs, we smoke all these other cuts. There's absolutely no reason that you shouldn't be able to impart those same flavors into ground beef, especially the ground beef that has the fats in it. And because, you know, smoke does really well with fatty meat, and it just, all I'm saying is people should be trying this, and this should be a really big thing, and you know, and then smoke the burger, and then finish it off on a hot, you know, on a hot skillet or on a grill, and you're good to go. But for whatever reason, I don't know. It's like there's that. It's like there's this line of, you know, do you want to be a barbecue restaurant or do you want to be a burger restaurant? And you know, you can't serve two masters, but if you try it, the results are fantastic. And I mean, who doesn't want a good burger? I mean, even if you're there for barbecue also. So I don't know. But I'm telling you right now, this is my prediction. This is going to be the next big thing in barbecue. And I could be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Chuck Blount doubling down on smoked burgers being a thing. For as much as you had wrote, I mean, you were really convincing me through that article. And then, of course, after we had talked about it here on the show the last time, I thought it was just going to be something that we might be reading about regularly. There'd be Instagram pictures at the most famous spots in Texas now unveiling their version of whatever a smoked burger is going to be. But we haven't really seen that yet. But Chuck Blount doubling down from the San Antonio Express News, and you can follow him on Twitter at Chuck_Blount, BLOUNT. Go ahead and finish up there.
Well, yeah, no, I'm just saying, yeah, I absolutely am convinced that this is going to be the next thing in barbecue. So I'm tripling down, sir. I am tripling down.
All right, tripling down, as it were, doubling down under protest, but tripling down, no doubt about it. Next story is
I double dog dare you. I double dog dare you.
All right, I see where we're going. A little Christmas story nuance here, which I certainly love and appreciate. Terry Black's Barbecue has moved or added a new location to what some consider to be the barbecue mecca of Texas. Not Austin, although a lot of people think that. Lockhart. Now, not only do we have a fairly long-standing feud that has been there between Smitty's, Croyd's Market. I don't know if a lot of people know the history of that, but you have some brothers who were the restaurant operators. Then you had the sister that owned the building/restaurant. They referred to her as the landlady, and there was this cost increase that's going to be happening, and now they're going 4/10 of a mile down the road and opening up the new version of the restaurant. And then there's going to be this lady's husband is going to be opening up a new barbecue restaurant where the old one was going to be. So there's that whole feud that's been going on, and that's gone back a number of years, maybe even decades at this point. But there could be a new feud coming into town. You have Black's Barbecue already in town, well known. Terry Black's Barbecue, these two brothers are now moving to Lockhart. What do you think about a new feud a brewing in Lockhart?
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head in there, and that, yeah, this tiny little town of, I don't know, what is it, 10,000 people maybe that live in Lockhart, and it's this nonstop feuding of barbecue blood, and you actually broke the news to me about Terry Black's going to Lockhart, but the history of between Kreitz Market and Smitty's Market is so well documented. And, you do have the original Black's Barbecue and then Terry Black's. I'm curious to see how that's going to unfold, because Terry Black's does have a pretty good reputation already in Texas. Of course, the original Black's, I think I did a story about this a while back, but I believe Black's Barbecue, the original Black's Barbecue, is the longest run barbecue joint in the state. And, I don't care what anybody says, and I've taken some heat on this.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, there's Austin. Yeah, there's San Antonio. There's, Houston. There's all sorts of barbecue destinations. I still get goosebumps when I enter the Lockhart city limits. There's just something. There's something special to it, and they cook with they go old school with the fire coals, and they're just scooping those hot coals into the fire, and you go into a place like Smitty's and you're wondering, like, man, it feels like my feet are on fire. And that's because as you're standing in line, you are 2 feet away from literally the fire that is manning their pits. Old school meats, shoulder clawed, they all make their own sausage. And I'm going to be really curious. I actually think I probably need to go back up there, and I'm going to be curious to see where Terry Black's fits into that scheme. And they also have Chisholm Trail Barbecue, which is another really, really good place. That's where they claim the locals go. It's not the tourists that are on a barbecue pilgrimage or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There must be something about the water in Lockhart where people want to just fight. I don't want to fight about barbecue. And but hey, in the end, the customer always wins, though, right? I mean, if everybody's trying to outdo everybody else, you just want to eat the best barbecue you can, and it's definitely a bucket list trip, a bucket list town that if you're really serious into barbecue, you've got to be there at least once. I mean, you got to.
I didn't realize that the Terry Black's barbecue owners have, I don't know if this is their second or third location that they have open right now, but throughout Texas, as you dig a little deeper into this article I was reading, they have 9 other properties across Texas that they currently own. Not all of them are going to be housing whatever the newest version of Terry Black's barbecue is going to be in whatever town they're in, or have property acquired. Maybe it's going to be a different concept, but if wherever that land is that they have currently fits or meets whatever criteria Terry Black's could go into, then they're going to put one in there. I had no idea that they were looking to grow on scale like that.
Yeah. I'm aware of at least 3 locations, I think, of Terry Black's, and so I think there's one in San Marcos, and I think there's one in Austin, and but yeah, it's definitely they must be doing something right. The fact that they can expand it the way that they're doing it, but I keep going back to it in the end. If you're a barbecue enthusiast, you're a winner regardless. I mean, whatever the fights are for business, that's of no concern to you as a customer. You're just there to eat good barbecue, and hopefully it just keeps elevating the scale to where it gets better and better and better. And which Texas it's really amazing. I mean, our growth in barbecue is so amazing. Like, I mean, I swear I write about a new barbecue joint that's opening up every other week, even still in this economy. I mean, I don't see any end to it either, because, people love to do it. People love to eat it. And from food trucks to brick and mortars and everything in between, there's no stopping what's going on right now. But other than the costs of the product has really gone up.
We'll talk about that here in 1 second. Let me ask you about another story that was breaking over the last couple days. And this goes obviously to the quality of briskets that are being prepared in Texas as well. Famed barbecue location, La Barbecue, has been stolen from again. I believe this makes the 5th time. There were 20 briskets that were being cold smoked. Not sure exactly what that means, but some process that they do over there. They cut the locks off the smokers as they were going overnight, stole 20 briskets. I've seen totals ranging somewhere between the mid $2,000 all the way up to $3,200 in total value for all of this. Why is La Barbecue specific to this thievery, or are there also other barbecue locations that have been stolen from?
It that has been shockingly a regular story down here in Texas. And I I don't know who is buying black market meat.
Maybe they're keeping it and vacuum packing it, and they don't have to worry about briskets for the next year.
I don't know, but we had a string here in San Antonio where barbecue joints were regularly getting broken into, and there was even a place. I don't know if you've heard about it or not, but it's Two Brothers Barbecue. That's a really well-known place here in San Antonio. Somebody even stole, like, they had like old school cattle branding irons like in their pit, and somebody stole those, and there were video. We ran a bunch of stories on them. We called them the brisket bandits.
Wow.
And we did it is a thing. I don't get it, because a lot of I just don't know who is buying a brisket from somebody out of a truck that says, where
Hey,
they don't know where it came from. It's like, hey, I got a guy. And it's not like, I mean, if you're going to steal from La Barbecue, which is a really, really good barbecue joint.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, I don't think these briskets are fully cooked or finished or anything like that, but it's I guess it's a unique thing to the barbecue business, in that it takes so long to cook the meats, and it takes, people, I think maybe they do, maybe they case the joints and say, well, where do they store their meat at? Where do we put it? I really don't know. And that's actually a really good idea, and that maybe that's a story I need to continue to work on. But that was definitely a thing in San Antonio for a while. And, I imagine it's a thing everywhere. And the fact that La Barbecue, got hit up to that degree, I mean, a couple $1,000 is pretty substantial cut, to your business, for sure. No doubt about it. But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird story for sure. But all I know is if somebody pulls up to my house in a truck and they say, Chuck, I got a brisket for you for $35, I'm going to have some questions. And so
Coach Purse in the back of that truck? No, not Coach Purse. It's a brisket. How about that? Yeah, sounds great. Talking about brisket here, last question before I let you go tonight, and appreciate the time. Per pound brisket now approaching $30. Where does it end?
You know what? I don't know. I've never owned a barbecue business, or much less a restaurant. I just write about them and frequent them. But there was a guy in Austin. He had this sports bar, and all he did was sell beer and cheeseburgers. And he made the point that he said, at some point, he goes, I can't charge $26 for a cheeseburger at a dive bar, or I can't, he goes, but for me to be able to pay my rent and to pay my bills, that's pretty much what I have to do. And about 6 years ago, this was a little bit different in like Franklin and Austin. I think they were probably one of the first ones to go $20 a pound. And about 5-6 years ago in San Antonio, we finally started seeing $20 a pound for brisket. And all of a sudden, with all these new places that are opening, the other day I saw a place that on day one of business, so they were unproven, nobody knew where they were, and $30 a pound. Wow. For brisket. Now, we're talking about a cut of meat that got popular because nobody wanted it, and it was cheap, and it had all the fat and everything like that. Well, $30 a pound, you can get like a a really top grade ribeye steak for that.
Yeah.
So I like, again, I don't understand. I understand what it takes to keep the doors open, and you have to make money, and it's a time consuming meat, and you sell out, and you can only cook so much based on the size of your pit. But I think we're at that breaking point. I mean, if
people will start saying
pound,
no at some point.
Yeah, I mean, instead of getting a pound of brisket, I think people might be dialing back and saying, you know what, give me the 1/3 pound brisket sandwich or something like that. So, like in Texas, what we always do is, it was counter ordering. You order it by the pound. You got your sides, and everything's on a big sheet of butcher paper and everything like that. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to see that culture might be disappearing, because you don't go to a barbecue restaurant and expect to pay $120 for lunch, for a family of 4. And that, it's getting that way. And again, I'm very sympathetic towards everybody involved in the supply chain and the restaurant owners trying to make a living and everything like that. But $30 a pound for brisket,
wow,
is a lot of money.
Chuck Blount joining us here on the show from the San Antonio Express News, talking about $30 a pound for brisket. And you can read Chuck's workings over there at the website, of course, San Antonio Express News. Chuck, always appreciate the time and all the breakdown of the stuff we're talking about here this evening. And we'll do it again soon.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You got
Talk
it. There he
later.
is. Chuck Blount right there from the San Antonio Express News. I'm with him. My head's spinning at $30 a pound for brisket. That's a no for me. I'll take the pulled pork to go. ×2, ×3. Ribs are good. You know what else is good? Yoder Smokers, building and designing all their pits right here in the States, building pride through craftsmanship, world-class customer service. That's the backbone of how they've built the company. The approach translates into what can be a truly bespoke style product that elevates gatherings with friends and family. Honored to have a trusted place in the backyards of America. From pellet grills to wood-fueled offsets and charcoal smokers, consistent blue ribbon flavor has become synonymous with the Yoder Smokers name. Make no mistake, Yoder Smokers flavor-driven design is unique to each style of pit, and their team has developed their cookers to perform time and time again while outlasting the competition for generations to come. It's this generational thought that's rooted in the handmade products, defines the integrity of the core values, American-made quality, and endless flavor. Those are the benchmarks of Yoder Smokers. Visit yodersmokers.com today, see what they have, find a dealer near you, and their inventory is going quick, so act quickly if you want one. We're back to wrap the first hour right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Chuck Blount again from the San Antonio Express News for joining us last segment. This portion of the show brought to you by Pit Barrel Cooker, the most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet, currently available in 3 sizes. With a host of accessories, whether you're a beginner or a professional, definitely a cooker you want to add to the arsenal. Visit pitbarrelcooker.com and tell them Barbecue Central Show sent you. They will certainly appreciate that. I will certainly appreciate that as well. All right. Meathead was talking about water pan myths, so if you missed that, you can get the podcast tomorrow. And we were just joined by Chuck Blount covering a host of new Texas news items. $30 a pound for brisket. That's something that's happening on the regular, becoming the standard operating procedure or business practice. We also talked about Le Barbecue getting 20 briskets stolen out of their cookers. And he's now tripling down that smoked burgers will be a thing sooner than later. Didn't really take off a couple months ago when he first brought it up after we talked about it on a story he had written for the San Antonio News Express, but we'll see how it goes from here. Refresh libations. We're headed to the second hour. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Gene Acasella from Port St. John, Florida, and you're listening to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show.
Happy to have you aboard here for the Really Big Barbecue Show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me!
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle. Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude.
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 2 feet or wiener. Oh, listen, Liberty, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour. It's the Barbecue Central Show. We talk about barbecue and grilling-related items once a week live on Tuesday nights from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. That's what's happening right now. In lieu of the live broadcast, you can also subscribe to me through all of the different podcast platforms where you will be alerted on Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays to brand new podcast episodes, which you can listen to at your convenience. If you want to skip a whole month and then binge them on the way to some type of summer vacation, that's certainly your prerogative. Have at it. Be a live listener at least once in your life. You never know what's going to happen. Things could change up very quickly, and now all of a sudden we're in some kind of dire situation. There's nothing more pulse-generating than hearing the show go right into the shit can without any notice. By the way, we are broadcasting from
Palm City, USA, Cleveland.
Still to come in the show this evening, 2022 Barbecue Hall of Famer Lee Ann Whippen. We'll talk about what getting into the Barbecue Hall of Fame means to her, and then we'll go ahead and do a origin story of sorts as well. Don't forget you can follow me socially at BBQ Central Show on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Snapchat, /BBQ Central Show on Facebook and Twitch for live video feeds, /RD Rempe for a live video feed over on YouTube. And we are audibly live on Clubhouse as well with the usual cast of characters in there taking in the show, just audio only. So we certainly appreciate that. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 minutes or less this coming Friday, episode 241, taking you back to August 16th, 2016. Who do we have this week? The longest-running embedded correspondent from Texas and the pitmaster of Rogue Cookers, Doug Scheiding, is featured. Back in 2016, we were talking a lot about the competition sanctioning body in Texas, at least at the time, the IBCA, or International Barbecue Cookers Association. So if you aren't familiar with Texas competitions, and especially the IBCA, then this will be one that you want to check out, and you will be able to listen to what was hot 6 years ago with the IBCA. And believe me, it was hot. Searing hot news, reviews, and opinions. So see what it's all about. Don't forget, if you want to hear a guest or a segment again on a show that's been lost in the archives, email John. Let him know what you would like to hear in that best of version, JON, at thebbqcentralshow.com. Once again, that's JON at thebbqcentralshow.com. Upcoming shows in August, at least for the remainder as it sits in the calendar right now. Mike Lang will be on next week. We'll be there to hype up the impending September Grill Fest over at Hartville Hardware, which, as you have come to know, if you're longtime fans of the show, I've been an MC the last handful of years there for that whole day event. But it's the largest independently owned hardware store in the country. It might be the world, but definitely the country. And as I always say, there's full-size homes inside the actual hardware store, just to give you an idea of how big this place is. It's a destination. There's swap meets in the back. There's a restaurant to the right of it. There's a hotel to the right of the restaurant. It's a situation. You got to come and check it out at least once in your life. Just like listening live to the show, you have to come down to the Grill Fest. Watch me do live hosting, interact with Mike Lang. I'll be interacting with BBQ. It's going to be fun and frivolous potentially, but definitely fun with a lot of great information and demos. You can have food. There'll be special deals, all that fun stuff. And that's going to be mid-September. But Mike and Lang and I will be talking about that next week. Also, Susie Bullock and Todd Bullock will be on here in just a few short weeks. And Chris Young, second-time guest to the show will be on from Combustion Inc. And, of course, the embedded correspondents will be along at the end of the bunch. Much more. Derek Riches also. Well, I have some exciting news. There is a brand new animation to be released here this evening, and we're going to do it. First and foremost, I want to give thanks and praise to Damian Rodriguez from Doodles and Things for making this concept come to life. You might recall a few months ago I had the Meathead pineapple bit animated to rave reviews. Everybody loving it, thought it was great. Everybody thought Damian nailed a Meathead and nailed me, and the way that he animated us brought a whole new realm of fascination with this bit. Listening to it audio only is one that makes the mind race, but then seeing it animated is adding a whole nother level to it. And Damian came up with the whole concept there. I just sent him the audio and said, have at it, kid. And I say kid with all due respect because he is a kid that's doing this. So he ran with the concept, used the audio for inspiration, and developed that whole cartoon of pineapple that we all love. This time around, I sent him the audio and I sent him concept ideas specifically on this one, because if you don't follow Jeremy Andrus on social media, you might have missed a photo that he posted of himself. I don't know if it was a month ago or so. Look, Jeremy is in great shape. I don't know how old he is. He appears to have young kids, but that doesn't mean he's up in age. But he certainly hasn't let himself go by any stretch of the imagination, aside from having magnanimous wealth. He does have a very lean physique, trimmed and chiseled. And he was shirtless on his Instagram with a brisket, holding a brisket in both hands. And I saw that and I said, wow, here we go. We're going to have an animation. I'm going to go back through the interview I did with him. I'm going to pull out a bit of that interview, and however it gets animated from there, it's going to be me having a conversation with shirtless, muscular Jeremy Andrus, but we're going to ramp it up a notch. We're going to make him look like he is over buff, perhaps dealing a little bit or partaking in a little bit of the juice. He doesn't. But we wanted to ramp it up a little bit because it's fun when you do this stuff in animation. So I gave him the concept there, and he put this cartoon together. It's absolutely spectacular. I'm going to show it to you here in a second. And as soon as you get done watching this one, you're going to be like, oh, I can't wait for the next one. Well, good news. There's another one already in the works. Rough draft has already been approved. Down payment is in. He's now working on final animation. Let me just say this. I will tease it with this. That's all I'm saying about it. That's it. You can't put two and two together. I don't know what to say, but it's going to be awesome. I saw the rough draft. I also gave him concept on that, but he's picking up my concepts and bringing it across the goal line. Without any further ado, and for your listening and watching pleasure, by the way, if you're texting on a podcast, you got to go back and watch this on the video. If you don't follow me on social media, if you do, you've already seen it, but you're going to want to see it again. The Jeremy Andrus, Greg Rempe new animation for your approval.
Jeremy, two questions before I let you go, and I really appreciate the time this evening. Traeger seems like the place to have a dedicated podcast. Through my research on you, you're an investor in Zencastr. There's no Traeger podcast.
How did you know that?
Come on. I mean, I'm a professional here. I'm not some jamoke, running some stupid show. I mean, I do my homework here. So you're an investor in Zencastr, but no podcast for Traeger. Why no podcast?
You know what? You've inspired me to push harder on this idea. We've talked about this. There are no shortage of ideas, but this one, I agree. This one's obvious. You think about the great conversations that you can have. I love the idea. Look, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it could bring our community together.
Last question. The big one. At the end of 2022, will Jeremy Andrews still be the CEO of Traeger Grills?
I will be here at the end of this year. Yes.
Wow. How great is that? It's hard to only watch that, and I apologize. We're going to be running out of time, and I can't play it 3, 4, 5 times in a row. I could, but I'm not going to do it. So if you don't follow me socially, get it on any one of the channels. Follow me. It's all there. You can watch it as many times as you want. But when you watch it the first time, it's hard to just get past my face and Jeremy's face in utter disbelief at how talented Damien is in nailing us in our characters. The way he has Jeremy portrayed, his face is dead-ass nailed. And then you have the muscularity, the working out, the lifting of the Traeger grills, the one side push-up with a side of beef on them. But as you look further into the background on those chalkboards, on my pieces of paper, he had the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city in the background. I mean, he is nailing minutia. This level of professionalism for a kid this age is unheard of. He's going to be a talent. He's going to be leaving me behind, but not yet. We still have one to come. Keep an eye out, if you know what I mean. Keep an eye out. All right, Lee Ann Whippen will be joining us here in just one moment. I will talk to you about Primo Grills, by the way. Programming note, if you didn't see it on Twitter. This coming Saturday, we will be doing a live remote with Nick Bauer, president of Primo Grills, at their big dealer event out there in Illinois. So join us around 3 p.m. Eastern this coming Saturday. You can learn all about the dealer event and what you can expect as a potential consumer or a current customer with things that are going to be happening during the course of the rest of 2022. So what do we love about ceramic cookers? We love that they're fuel efficient. We love that you can achieve low and slow temperatures for traditional barbecue meat, and that you can get rip-roaring hot for high-temperature grilling of steaks and other thin cuts. But what's missing in the everyday ceramic lineup? The real ability to do true two-zone cooking. Two-zone cooking, very important to both professional and backyard cooks alike. It's the best way to manage a fire and cook with confidence. However, getting a two-zone fire in a round ceramic cooker, not very realistic. Why? Because it's round. Enter Primo Grills and their game-changing oval design. The shape gives you the ability to execute a two-zone setup that you desire. It also gives you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. Really, when you break it down, there's more than 60 different ways to configure the Primo cooker, so you're only limited by your culinary imagination. Here's the bottom line. Best ceramics in the biz? Yes. Patented technology? Of course. True two-zone cooking capabilities? I just said that. Multiple sizes? Oh, yes. And if you just have to have a round ceramic cooker because you can't get your head around what an oval is and why it's better and why people will love you for having an oval cooker, fine, they have a round. But if I may plead with you, the oval one, that's where it's at. Only sold through dealers. PrimoGrill.com. That's PrimoGrill.com. Check them out. Lee Ann Whippen is in the green room, and we'll be back with her in just 1 second. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the #1 most downloaded barbecue and grilling podcast anywhere. The Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
This portion of the show being brought to you by Smithfield. Head on over to Smithfield.com right now for tips and tricks from well-known live fire cooks like Darren Ward, Jess Pryles, and Giles Cridlin. Mouth-watering flavor. No artificial ingredients. Smithfield Fresh Pork is quite simply some of the finest pork money can buy. It's the trusted choice of top cooks for use at
competitions, and at home. Again, that's Smithfield.com. Years and years of support here to the show, which we certainly appreciate. Laura, Paul, and the gang out there. My next guest, or my guest in the second hour, certainly no stranger to this show over the years. She has provided some of the most memorable moments on the show, the most impactful, perhaps, as I had mentioned in the first hour, being a part of that very first competition brisket roundtable back in 2006 or so, if you can believe it. She's opened and run barbecue restaurants, been on TV a number of times, a spokesperson for Pit Boss Cookers, and a few months back inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame. So let's go ahead and race to the hotline and welcome back friend of the show, Lee Ann Whippen. Hey, Lee Ann.
Hey, good evening. It's nice to be here. Great to see you.
Very happy to have you and appreciate you making time for the show as always. As I just mentioned in the intro, now 16 years of on and off barbecue talks here with Barbecue Central Show. Do you know any other show that has lasted this long talking about such nonsense and tomfoolery?
I do not, and you're doing a great job all the time.
Let's start with the Barbecue Hall of Fame. You have been many times the bridesmaid, but this year we finally cross over that threshold and go in. When you get the call from Emily Park letting you know that you are going to be part of that class of 2022, what are the first reactions and emotions that hit you as you're now realizing you're going into the Barbecue Hall of Fame?
Well, first off, it was my third year being nominated, and I kind of know after a couple of years how it goes. Usually get the call a couple days before, keep it under wraps, that you're nominated. And the show, of course, was being aired live on your show, and it was about 10 minutes before it aired. I got the call. So it was, I didn't expect it. It caught me really off guard, and therefore I was even more surprised. And it was very exciting for me to get the call. So it's very surreal. It really doesn't sink in for a while, and now it's starting to sink in, and it's an amazing feeling to get recognition, for all the years that I've put into it. And, it's something that I love to do, and it's just awesome to be recognized by everyone.
Lee Ann Whippen joining us here on the show. You can go to her website, leannwhippenbbq.com, which when she was on last time in November, she was just talking about securing that website, but now it is up and running. Of course, you can follow her socially at Lee Ann Whippen across most of the platforms. Did you feel like getting into the Barbecue Hall of Fame should have happened sooner than this? Should it have taken 3 times for you to cross over?
There's a lot of people out there that have many accolades and are deserving of nominations and, being inducted. And it's just a tough field to be in, and you just don't know if the timing is right. And I just feel as, I got out of the restaurant business a year or so ago, and I thought to myself, wow, I always thought about the Barbecue Hall of Fame, and in a lot of things that I do, I'm like, is that going to hurt me? Because I stepped away from that for a while, but I jumped into other opportunities, still staying along the lines of barbecue. So I feel like I've crossed almost every area of barbecue that you can, except for writing a book, from being a competitor, restaurateur, and now a brand ambassador. And so I felt as if I crossed every section that needed to be covered. And also for, the 25 years that I've been doing it, I've dedicated my life to barbecue, really wholeheartedly. And I've made a lot of sacrifices along the way. So it's just, again, it's very nice to be recognized.
If you wouldn't have gotten in, would it weigh on you? Would you think about that?
Absolutely.
Really?
100%. I think, even when I got nominated, and then I didn't get in, I was like, okay, what can I do differently? I mean, I seriously thought about these things. And is there anything I can do that can help me along? And because it has been a goal for me. And it would have weighed really heavily on me if I would have felt like if I don't get in, I felt like at the point that I didn't even know that I got in. I figured it's not going to happen, and I'm just going to have to move on with my life, and I probably won't even get nominated again. I figured 3 times, that's it. If you aren't in, you aren't in. That's what I thought.
What are your thoughts on the Barbecue Hall of Fame? High level, what can be improved to make it more generally known that it's an actual thing? Because, I talk to people each and every week, especially when the Hall of Fame time of year comes around. We do that. Here's the finalist show, and then 3 weeks later, we reveal who's actually making up that class. There's people in this industry, Lee Ann, that don't even know that there's a Barbecue Hall of Fame. They don't know who's in it. Don't even know it's a thing. I think that's the biggest issue, lack of general visibility, especially within the live fire community. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I there's a lot of people, I've been to events recently where people say, congratulations. And they're like, for what? What did she do recently? And they say Barbecue Hall of Fame. And they're like, what's that? So there are a lot of people that don't know about it. And I think a lot of the issues are, nominations have to be sent in and it can't be by yourself. So if someone could be worthy of being in the Hall of Fame, but if someone doesn't nominate them, then nothing happens with it. So I do agree with you on that point. It needs to be, I don't know, more out there. And I really don't know what the answer is to do that, because they really, they give out the awards at the American Royal. It's one of the biggest contests. There's a lot of people there and a lot of people talk in the community, but still, I just don't think it gets out there enough.
Lee Ann, you go in with Ed Mitchell, Joe Traeger, and John Markus, all very deserving, all highly accomplished. Do you have any thoughts on any of them, or do some of them stand to you personally over and above that you would like to comment on?
I think they all deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. It's almost come full circle as it relates to John Markus, because we worked together, of course, on Barbecue Pitmasters, and we've stayed in touch over the years. And it's just kind of not ironic, but when we both got nominated, we texted each other, and I'm like, here we go again. I said, wouldn't that be something if this is our year? And sure enough, it happened. And afterward, we were just like, God, it's a strange feeling, isn't it? And he said, yeah, when I got the call, I felt different. And it is amazing how it sinks in, and it does make you feel different.
Lee Ann Whippen joining us here on the show, talking about what it's like to be a Barbecue Hall of Famer. But enough about that nonsense. Let's go ahead and get to know Lee Ann Whippen in an origin story type of way, like we did with John Markus a couple months ago. And let's take it all the way back. Where were you born?
Miami, Florida. So my mom was staying with my grandmother at the time, because my dad was flying, airplanes off of aircraft carriers, and he was on an aircraft carrier when I was being born. So he wasn't around for that moment. So that's why I was born in Miami. I was raised in Jersey because he was a captain with TWA Airlines, and he was based out of Kennedy Airport. So that's where I spent most of my life, all the way elementary, middle, high school, was in Sparta, New Jersey. So when people say, where are you from? I say New Jersey. They're like, how do you know how to barbecue? Well, my dad, his roots are, he was a Kansas City boy. He was born and raised on my Nana's hog farm in Lexington, Missouri. So we would always go see her. I have pictures of me little with, hogs around my feet. And we go to Arthur Bryant's and Gates, and we were just always into the barbecue thing. And my dad would be cooking it in the backyard. And then it was prior to 1996, he got to know Carolyn and Gary Wells very well, to the point where, they'd spend time at our house. Carolyn Wells actually bought me my first set of knives, if you can believe that.
Wow.
And she had gone and got carbon knives from all of these stores in Kansas City and put together a knife kit for me. And, that was pretty cool. So he got involved with that. And of course, he told me about it, and we went to judging class together at the Shelby contest, and we got certified as judges. And he started writing, his tabs tidbits in the publication, The Bullsheet, and going to contests. And he was just learning the whole thing about contests. He started, the Tryon North Carolina State Championship. But as it relates to me, I just fell in love with barbecue. And, I was in Atlanta working for the Hyatt Regency Atlanta. And my background, believe it or not, before barbecue was in food and beverage. So I was,
Lee Ann, let me stop you there because we're jumping
yeah.
way ahead. We have so many years to get to before we even get to any of this professional stuff here. Prior to starting any kind of schooling that you can remember, what kind of kid were you?
I was a little bit of a tomboy, loved to fish, still love to fish. I'd go and catch salamanders and put in my mom's milk box, and she'd bury the fish, in holes to, use for fertilizer for her plants. I would go out and paint white X's on the back of turtles. They were out in the lake where we lived. So I was very much a tomboy. I was into sports. I liked to water ski, snow ski, ice skate, all of that, because I was, available year round. We had the seasons up in Jersey. So a little bit of a tomboy.
How many people in the family?
Just me and my sister.
All right. Do you recall you and your sister getting along swimmingly? What kind of a relationship do you have as you kind of grow up, getting into that high school range?
We were kind of opposites growing up. I was kind of like the good student. She wasn't so much, but she and I got along very well. But we are so close now that we probably talk almost on a daily basis. Our family has always been tight over the years, but growing up, we did have some issues.
From a home life perspective, growing up, what kind of relationship do you have with your mom, and what kind of relationship do you have with your dad?
Well, my dad was always gone half the month flying. So I wasn't as close with him growing up as I was with my mom because, back in the day, the moms usually stayed home. So very close with mom growing up, and we grew up in a pilot community, so the neighbors were really close. We always were having barbecues together, spending time outside a lot, whereas you don't see that so much today. So we were always outside. I remember, whether be croquet, badminton, whatever. So I really had a very great upbringing and had a lot of fun.
When you're around a community that's probably in similar situations, do you notice in a missing way that your dad's gone, half the year and he's home half the year? Does he miss things that you're like, man, I wish he would have been here for that? I'm sure, he probably thinks that. But as a kid being a part of that, what does that do to you?
It's funny, since I was raised that way, I didn't know any differently. So I didn't know the way it was to have a father around all the time. So I just didn't know any different. So it didn't bother me. It was just, my way of life at the time.
Did your mom feel like she had to be both mom and potentially disciplinarian dad?
No, my dad was more of the he disciplined us more than my mom. I mean, my sister, I remember she used to eat ice cream sundaes with tons of sprinkles and a lot of maraschino cherries. And if she didn't, we always had to eat everything on our plate before we got dessert. And, if we didn't, we got sent to our room, and that would be my dad that would be doing that. So, no, I do remember one time fishing with my dad and my grandmother and thinking, why don't we do this more often? And that did cross my mind at that time. But other than that, it was pretty much how I grew up. So as I said, I didn't know any different.
So as you're growing up here, is there a culinary groundwork that's also being laid at this point in your life?
Absolutely. So as I said, we always had family and friends and neighbors, and my dad was always grilling. He had a Weber kettle in the backyard. I'll never forget it. And the big thing was he would cook ribs, and he wouldn't even send an invite out. Everyone knew the smell, and they'd all come over, and, it was just a thing. We would do steamed clams on the deck. We were always doing corn on the cob. My mom grew fresh tomatoes. So we always grew up eating a lot and barbecuing a lot.
Lee Ann Whippen joining us here on the show. Lee Ann Whippen, BBQ.com, her website. So as you get into high school, things change. People try to start becoming a little bit more independent, finding their own identity. How was high school like for you?
High school was great. I had a great group of friends. We spent a lot of this, summers out on the lake. I really didn't have any problems in high school. We really didn't have all these terrible things you hear about in school about bullying. I don't ever remember anything like that. I just remember it being a great experience.
From after high school, is it one of those things where you're just immediately thinking about going to college? I think nowadays there's still, it's weird. So I have kids that are, two that are in college now. One's getting ready to actually finish college in a year or so. I have another one that's starting her second year. When I was graduating from high school, it almost felt like, so this would be 92, it felt like that was a demand that parents were putting on their kids. You have to go to college in order to be successful in life later on. And maybe that's because in their generation, there wasn't a lot of kids going to college or as many, and somehow that's translated into success. Now, I always have a running dialogue with myself on, should they be going to college? Look how much it costs. What's the advantage? Are they going to be, how much in debt are they going to be just to say they went to college? Because they're all not going to be chemists and doctors and all specialty degrees. When you were going out of high school, did you feel a pressure to go to college?
I did. I felt as if my dad put a lot of pressure on me. He wanted me to go to the best college that I could get into. He went to colleges with me to take tours. But at the time, I decided what I wanted to do. And this was in my senior year of college. I decided that I wanted to follow my father's footsteps and be a pilot. So I actually paid for, with my own money, flying lessons when I was in high school, and I flew Cessna 152s and Piper Cubs off of grass fields, and I put myself through ground school. And so that was my goal. I wanted to be a pilot, and my dad backed me 100%. The problem was I wanted to get into Purdue's flight school, and at the time they only took 30 people in that class, and 10 of them were from out of state and 20 were in state, and I couldn't get in with my grades. So my angle was to go to Indiana University, establish residency, and then in my sophomore year, try to transfer over. But I loved IU, so I stayed there. And so that the pilot thing went out the window, and it was very expensive at the time. And then my dad's like, well, you should join the National Guard. And he had all these suggestions, none of which I was ready to do. So that did fall by the wayside. And then, during the summers when I started working in hotels, and that's when I started getting it, I fell in love with the whole food and beverage angle of hotels.
So do you end up graduating college with some type of business degree or finance or something
I
like that?
actually didn't graduate IU. I had a small tragedy happen with a friend of mine, and I ended up leaving. And I took
What does that mean, a small tragedy?
A friend of mine got, let's just say, injured, and it wasn't a very good thing. And so I went home and decided I would take a year off. And then I got into the hotels, and then I started moving up so rapidly in the hotels that I thought, I don't even need to go back to college. And then I wrote back to IU and I said, all right, I'm ready to come back. And they accepted me back. And I said, no, I'm just going to keep working in hotels. So that's what I did. I just kept working my way up the ladder in hotels.
It almost sounds akin to the Brooke Orson story, where Brad had her come to work for him over the course of the summer, and then all of a sudden Brooke never goes back to college because she's having too much fun making money and doing the restaurant thing with Brad. That's definitely interesting. So you don't technically graduate. Now you're in professional setting. As you said, you're shooting up the corporate ranks there. Is this now in all forms of hotel business, or are you in culinary?
So I started off in the sales department, selling sleeping rooms and, convention blocks and that sort of thing. And then one of the girls that was in the catering department quit, and I said, you know what, let me try to move over to that position because I like food, and I ended up excelling in that. And then I found a job opportunity at a Holiday Inn in Livingston, New Jersey, where they were looking for a catering director. And I'll never forget the interview because when I walked in there, the gentleman who was in charge of food and beverage for like 5 of their properties said, okay, if you're going to be, serving a wedding, what are you going to suggest for an appetizer? And I was just dumbfounded. I was like, an appetizer for a wedding? I don't know. And he says, well, don't you think that a salad or a fruit cup would be appropriate? And I said, absolutely, 100%. And so anyway, I ended up getting the job, and I stayed there for quite a few years. And I was catering director, and I did weddings there, bat mitzvahs, and, I was actually, running these things and, putting the chair there for the bride to sit in and, the whole thing. And then, then I ended up meeting my first husband, and he was a publisher for New Jersey Success magazine. Anyway, long story short, he got a job right after we got married in Guam. So I moved to Guam, and I became, and he was a publisher for the Guam Tribune, and I was the Island Gourmet writer. So I wrote the food column and all the recipes while I was pregnant and having my first child. So I kind of stayed in the whole food thing. So I was actually a food columnist for that newspaper for a couple of years.
Wow. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll follow up on a lot of that stuff because that's good, juicy, personal stuff that, of course, we want to talk about. So stand by, Lee Ann. We'll be right back in just 1 second. And as we get ready to talk a little bit more, I will mention my good pal Sterling Ball and the gang over at Big Papa Smokers, the one-stop online shop for all things barbecue. Their curated selection of only the best outdoor cooking and grilling supplies, getting you on the path to better barbecue results in no time. Everything on the website has been Pitmaster approved by Sterling Big Papa Ball himself. Known for the championship rubs and seasonings, popular flavors like Sweet Money, Cattle Prod, Cash Cow, all proven winners on the competition circuit and in the backyard. Big Papa Smokers offering 13 perfectly balanced flavors to transform ordinary meals into extraordinary. Also the owner of Granny's Barbecue Sauce. So if you're looking for a new go-to sauce, or you're sick of what's currently out there and you want to try something a little bit new, Granny's Barbecue Sauce is what you want to go for. Aside from the premium selection of rubs and sauces, Big Papa's offering the very best charcoal, pellet, and wood cookers available today. If you're looking for a versatile smoker that's easy to use, check out that Mac 2-star General Pellet Cooker. Big Papa Smokers, the exclusive Mac dealer, even offering special packages. If you're not a fan of pellet smokers, fine. If you're not sure of what grill you need, don't worry. Call them. Ask questions. 877-828-0727. That's 877-828-0727. Or shop their website at bigpapasmokers.com. That's BIGPOPPA Smokers.com. We are back with more Lee Ann Whippen conversation right after this. Stick around.
You're listening to the #1 most downloaded barbecue and grilling podcast anywhere. The Barbecue Central Show. Let's get back to a guy who has more experience giving you his opinion than he actually has cooking. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Welcome back. Back in the day, watches were made to be worn in the pocket. And after World War II, wristwatches came into vogue. The pocket watches quickly became an afterthought, finding their way into sock drawers and scrap heaps, and that's a tragedy. But Entic Vortic Watch Company helping bridge the gap between America's storied watch manufacturing past and bringing it to the present day, where wristwatches are finding incredible popularity once again. And here's the coolest part. Each watch that they make is unique and one of a kind. Nobody has one just like yours. Vortic, founded on the motto that America wasn't assembled, it was built. Check them out at vorticwatches.com. And we are rejoined by Lee Ann Whippen, Lee Ann Whippen, BBQ.com, on social media at Lee Ann Whippen.
All right, so you had dropped a whole bunch of stuff right there as we went out to the break. You've moved to Guam, you're married, you're got a kid on the way, you're the island gourmet, which may or may not sound like some kind of nepotism to me, but we'll leave that out of it because you know who the publisher is or the editor. You meet your husband. Like, what's the love story there? How does that all come to happen?
So when I worked at the Holiday in Livingston, we used to have these things at nighttime, and I still think that hotels do this, but they were manager cocktail parties. And the people that stayed in the hotel would, come and get a free drink and some appetizers. And we as managers in the hotel would bartend, and we would, talk to the customers and socialize. And that's where I met him. He happened to be staying at the hotel because he was the publisher for New Jersey Success magazine. So that's where I met him, and that's where we got to know each other.
Do you guys date pretty quick and then get married pretty quick, or was it
Yeah,
kind of a long
we
thing?
dated for all of, I think we dated 3 months and got engaged. And then we were married about 6 months later. And then the day after I got married is when we moved to Guam.
You saw that on the radar? Like, that wasn't something where he was like, hey, we got to move to Guam real quick?
It was a little bit of a surprise, and I don't like hot weather that much. So it was even more shocking because I had never been there before. And anyway, I went to Guam.
Well, I mean, would we
And it was
say
a shocker.
as we look back at it, would we say the minute he says we're going to Guam, it's thin ice at that point? Like, we're not headed in the right direction?
I was too far deep in, and my family was extremely upset because they didn't see it coming. And it was one of those things like he got this job offer he couldn't refuse, and we got to do it. So I did it, and I remember getting off the plane, and it was hot as could be, and I looked around, and there was nothing there. And we drove, and he's like, "Oh, the island's so beautiful." We drove around. There's the Micronesia Mall, big deal, with a Sears there, and it was, there was nothing there except in the bay, Tumon Bay, and that's where all of the beautiful resort hotels were, but that was it. I mean, and everything was super expensive, and it was hot. I was miserable, just miserable. But I stayed there for a couple years.
And then you're quickly pregnant, or did that happen like a year or so?
Yes. So I was married in February, and then the following April is when I had Brittany. So Brittany was born on Guam, which was like having a child in a forest. Let me just put it that way. The hospitals weren't too great at the time.
So what's it like being a new mother in Guam and then also writing some type of column?
Well, I was getting bored, but I did some interesting things. I mean, we traveled and went to Palau and Saipan, so I did see that part of the world. The Miss Universe pageant was held there, and I was a judge for it.
Really?
So I did some. Yeah, I was a judge for the Miss
won?
Universe. You know what? I can't even remember. It was so long ago, but I have a VCR tape of it. Yeah, so it was interesting. The thing about Guam is the power goes out quite often there. People don't know this, but there are no birds on the island of Guam, and the reason is because all the brown tree snakes have eaten them all. So there are no birds there, and the brown tree snakes climb up, the transformers because they like the buzz of the transformers. And so when they go up there, they make the power go out. So that was another thing that was really odd about the island I don't hear anybody talk about it, and it's true. No birds.
Wow. That's that's another thing that I didn't know anything about. So you make it, you said 2 years. Is that also, so you're coming back to the States at that point? Is that also the end of the marriage?
No, we came back married, and he got another publishing job, and we moved to Pontiac, Illinois, which we lived on a farm with a cornfield, so we're going from the island to the cornfields. And again, I'm having trouble with this whole thing. And I was getting bored. I was used to working a lot in hotels, and I wasn't writing anymore. And there was really nothing for me to do in Illinois. So that's when things fell apart, and I moved to Atlanta, and I moved in with my sister, and that's when I got my job at the Hyatt Regency Atlanta. And that was a big hotel, and that was a big position for me.
Do you think if you would have dated 6 more months or 12 more months, you would have never got married?
It's a possibility. It's a possibility. I think if I had known, I don't know. I don't
Are
know.
you
It's
young?
hard to
Like, how
say.
old are you when you get married?
I was 26.
Oh, okay.
So I almost felt like I was at the right age to get married. I wasn't looking to get married, but yeah, it's just one of the. It was a risk, I think, and I will say, when my dad was walking me down the aisle, if he had said to me, "You can turn back if you want to," I might have done that.
Oh, no. You're just looking for the push out the door. Lee Ann, the door's open to the right if you want to go. Boom, you would have been out.
Oh,
Wow.
brother.
So now you're in
Yeah,
Atlanta.
so
You're in
so
Atlanta. You've
it's
moved in with your sister. You
Yep,
have
I moved
what?
in with her, and that's when my dad got involved with the Kansas City Barbecue Society in
Mm,
1996.
yep.
And I said, let's go compete. So they had a contest, a KCBS event in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and I called him up and I said, "Let's compete." And he's like, he had an Oklahoma Joe. And so we had the equipment, and I had been doing some cooking on my own on my bullets and sending Dad. I still have Polaroids of me showing him the first smoke ring I achieved. And I had a garage sale. I was selling ribs for $1 and painted it on a wood board. I have pictures of that. So I was doing it, just for fun. So he's like, "Okay, well, we'll go ahead and compete. We know what the judges are looking for, and let's just do it for the heck of it." And I said, "Oh, and they're having a whole hog competition." And he said, "Oh, no, 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 we aren't doing a whole hog." And I said, "All right, I get it. It's our first contest." And I hang up the phone, and the phone rings like a few minutes later. He goes, "Where do you want me to get the hog?" And so we ended up cooking a whole hog.
Wow.
And we did this contraption with chicken wire and broomstick handles so we could flip it. And we had to angle it into the Oklahoma Joe. And we ended up winning 5th in whole hog. I'll never
Wow.
forget it. And we won grand champion, which entitled us to go to the Royal. We go to the Royal, and we won first place in pork. And I was like hooked. At that point on, I was
This
like,
is easy.
I've got to do this. That's it. This is what I'm doing.
Wow. When you look back, leaving that marriage, going into Atlanta, what was like one thing that you learned, or within that process? What do you carry with you this day still?
Well, it was a very difficult time for me because, I had my daughter and I was working full time. And I just, I leaned on my family a lot, and they were there for me. And so I've just learned how important family is and how they can save you and, keep you going.
Now that you are into the competition barbecue scene, you've experienced success at some of the highest levels right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
When do restaurants start to get into your blood? You look at the resume, and there's at least 4 that I can think of off the top of my head that you've either started or run.
Yeah, the thing is, I knew that I couldn't make a living in barbecue. I had to keep my hotel job. So that's when I bought, I figured I was going to buy, a trailer and then try to sell barbecue out of the trailer. So I ended up buying my trailer from Habitual Smokers back in, 2002, I guess it was. And I still have that trailer to this day. It's been modified many times over. But I ended up buying the trailer, and I bought a Silverado, which I still have today. And I went out to the Midwest, I think, to get the trailer. But before I bought it, I went to the health department. I said, "Hey, I want to sell barbecue out of this. What do I need to do? Is this the right thing to buy?" And the health department lady was super sweet. She's like, "You got to put in the 3-compartment sink and da da da." And she told me everything I need to do, before I actually bought it. and I bought it with credit cards. I had very good credit at the time, so I actually maxed out like 3 different credit cards.
Wow.
And did like those cash advance checks? And that's how I bought the trailer.
Wow.
And then so I quit my hotel job in 2002 and hit the road with my trailer, competing and selling barbecue, and thinking that I would grow business by doing catering, and it just wasn't enough income. And that's when I decided. I lived in Chesapeake, Virginia at the time. I saw a card shop that I thought, oh, this is a perfect space for a barbecue joint. And I eyed it for about a year. And then I had heard that the lady was closing it. And I ran in there before she left and I said, please rent it to me. And she goes, you got to go through my realtor, but sure. So I ended up doing a full build out in there and did my first restaurant.
Do you still have that Oklahoma Joe's that your dad had?
We just got rid of that. And my dad actually gave it away. I wanted to bring it with me to Florida, but I would say that was gone about 4 years ago.
Is it like one of the originals?
Yeah, it was.
Did Joe Davidson contact you to try and get it back?
No, but I could probably find it. I mean, I know it's sitting somewhere in Tryon, North Carolina, in someone's backyard, probably not being used.
The first time
I had nowhere to put it. It was heartbreaking when he said, I'm just going to give it to him. He goes, if you want it, you can take it, but you take it right now. And I had taken it from him, and I did take it to Chesapeake, Virginia. The Throwdown with Bobby Flay was done with that cooker. That's what I cooked on.
Wow.
And then when I left Virginia and I went to Chicago, obviously I couldn't take it to Chicago. I took my trailer. There's only so much I could take. So I brought it back down to him, and we used it for, we cooked a couple of hogs on it when I'd visit. And then finally he's like, I just got to get rid of it. If you can't take it, I'm giving it away. And so I said, okay, I couldn't do it.
The first interview that I had with Joe Davidson, it's probably been a year and a half ago. Towards the end of that, we were talking about his whole start in business was bringing a handful to the Oklahoma State Fair, and then he leaves with, I think it was a dozen. He sold them all, and then he left with a order for like 200 cookers, and that's how his smoker business got started. But towards the end, he said he had been on a small mission of going and buying back a lot of those original pieces, not after the sale and, whatever the version of Oklahoma Joe is now, but the ones that have the serial numbers on the door or wherever they're at. He was actively going back. He might have had 25 or 30 original Oklahoma Joe's cookers.
Wow.
That, so I'm sure he's always interested in trying to get another one back underneath.
Yeah, that is
the wing.
interesting. Yeah.
So you're at Wood Chicks, and you do that from 2002 to 2013. So that's a pretty good
I
run.
ended up opening up a second Wood Chicks.
Yes.
In a mall, where they can't have smokers. And I was in the good graces of the health department. They're like, if you can ferry the food over here and keep it hot, we will allow you to do the barbecue. So I did another build out there in their food court. And that was in 2004. So it was only that was 2006. And then, of course, the malls started going away because they built the TJ Maxx and Marshalls across the way. So I was only there for 2 years. And then I eyed another property, which is a freestanding place with, and it was a Ribs and Company. I don't know if you remember that chain.
No.
And it was Bodie Noel, who owns Hardee's, that owned the property. And the Ribs and Company went out of business, and why I thought that I could go in there and make it work after a corporate place fell apart, I don't know. And of course, when I decide to sign the lease, it's in 2008, and you know what happened in 2008.
Yeah.
So it was the worst timing, possible. But I did secure the lease for 5 years, and so I finished out my first lease for 5 years, and finally, was at the freestanding Wood Chicks. And then, then the Chicago thing came around in 2010. So I did finish out my lease at Wood Chicks for the 5 years. So there was an overlap of Chesapeake, Virginia, that restaurant, and Chicago Q.
Chicago Q was interesting because aside from maybe one or two other fine dining barbecue establishments, it's really not a concept that you heard too much about. But
This one was getting a lot of fanfare. You were attached to it. You had been on TV a number of times at this point, seen success at Wood Chicks. What went right and what went wrong with Chicago Q? You can go back and, look through some of the internet stories, and towards the end, it looked like you had some issues
Well,
with
the
one
truth
of
of
the
the
partners.
matter is that, the gentleman who owned the property flew me out there, and I had lived in Manhattan many years ago, and I really enjoyed the city life. And so when I went to Chicago, I fell in love with it immediately.
Yeah.
And it was very enticing because the property had partially been built out, and I knew what it was going to be. It was going to be drop dead gorgeous. It was at a perfect location in the Gold Coast of Chicago. And he made me a deal that I couldn't refuse. And, that pretty much was, move here and, bring your daughter and run this place, and I'll give you half everything. I said, really? And so I actually showed the documents to my attorneys before I took the plunge, and they said, looks good to me.
Wow.
So I went out there, and everything did go well, very, very well. They were doing no business, or we were doing no business on the weekends. I started brunch. We were doing 400 and 500 covers. The place was jammed all the time, and with celebrities. And I did competition ribs, which I think I really am the first one that ever did that in the country. And I did competition house ribs, and I was selling competition ribs. And, this was in 2010 for $35, and we were selling out of them.
Wow.
And, it was a concept that, had a lot of attention. And, we got a lot of media because of the barbecue brunches that we were doing. We were doing, high-end Benedicts, with brisket, pork, on different bases, be it, cornbread or biscuits, cheddar biscuits with, 3 flavored holiday sauces. So, and, we were doing, brined, compart Duroc pork chops. And so really some cool stuff that I couldn't do in Virginia. With the price point in Chicago, I was able to really step it up in barbecue, and it was a great experience.
When I'm reading through why it goes south, it seems like they hold back some money. They're not paying you expenses. They don't give you a steak in the restaurant as they said they were going
that's
to.
basically, that's what happened. So after 5 years, we were finally starting, it was a huge expense on the build out. So we were actually, starting to make money to go into the pockets. And that's when, my partner decided that, that wasn't going to continue. And I said, well, if it's not, then I'm going to leave. And, so, and then when in reviewing contracts, it technically, it was a 5-year contract, but it had automatic renewals. And because of the situation, I said no. And it was a terrible, terrible thing. And then the Chicago Cut Steakhouse boys ended up coming to me the next day. They had heard about it immediately, and they said, we'll do a restaurant with you. And I jumped on board with them, and they did a full build out right off of Michigan Avenue, and that was Southern Cut Barbecue.
And then ultimately you make it back down to Tampa for Deviled Pig.
Yeah. So in 2018, well, they were going to look for properties so that I could be a part owner, because at the time I was just their executive chef. And I didn't foresee it in the near future. So I looked at that, and I looked at the fact that, my daughter was starting a family, and, my mom's getting older. She lives in Naples, and my daughter lived in Tampa. I said, it's now or never, let me go. And so I left on great terms. I still stay in touch with those folks. And so then I moved down here in January of 18, and then opened up the Deviled Pig in October of 18, which was a smaller restaurant. And I didn't want to go back to that fancy dining thing. It's just too much pressure, when you have 100 employees. And I kind of wanted to go back to my roots of Wood Chicks. And that's why I opted to do the smaller restaurant.
Can you be in the restaurant setting and ever think that this is a place that will stay open for 25 years or 30 years, or is going through 4 or 5 restaurants in a lifetime more the norm?
It's a lot. It's exhausting. You have to make a lot of sacrifices. it just felt like it wouldn't stop. I was just constantly go, go, go. And that's why I wanted to back off and, go into the smaller restaurant. But the pressure is still there. And you start to question after so many years, and you look at, how much money you're really taking in. Is it really worth it? Am I making the right decision? And life is passing you by, and then COVID comes along, and I just decide I gotta stop this, at least take a break from the restaurant business. It's just not worth it. And I don't have any regrets for anything that happened in the past. But honestly, so what I'm doing is, rather than a restaurant, my trailer I'm putting back in action again. So this fall, I'm going to be doing a barbecue truck again.
Going back to the roots.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's as far as I'm going to go, though. And I'm going to have someone else, I'm going to do the menu and oversee it, but I'm not going to be working in 100-degree weather out of the trailer. But I do think that there's a place for it. And who knows, I might make more money with that than what I did in the restaurant business. I don't know. It's like, as soon as I say I'm not going to do it, and then I do it, things change and things happen. But a full-on restaurant with employees, I don't see that happening again. So I do like the idea of a food truck. That seems manageable.
Lee Ann Whippen joining us here on the show, 2022 Barbecue Hall of Famer. And you can find her at leeannwhippenbbq.com website-wise. How does barbecue TV appear to you for the first time?
How does it appear?
Yeah, like opportunity-wise.
Oh, well, this was, the Barbecue Pitmasters was the first time anything like that came around, and I didn't even know what to expect from it. And it was so much fun because, we were traveling all over the country and going to contests, and it wasn't like it was scripted. It was the real deal.
But you were doing barbecue TV even before that. You were All-Star Barbecue Showdown and things like that.
Yeah, that's right. I did the Kingsford Barbecue Championship Series out in Reno, and that was another one. And I did the Throwdown with Bobby Flay. But those were like kind of one-offs. You don't really think about that much. I mean, the Throwdown did a lot for my business, but the Pitmaster show was way bigger than that. And it was unfortunate. I feel as if the timing was off. It felt like every time they were airing a show, there was some like big sporting event at the same time. And it was all about the ratings, if we were going to do a season 2. And I don't know if you know this, but they flew all of us, all 7 of us up to New York, and they took photographs of us. And for season 2, that's what we thought, there was going to be another season 2. Myron was there, and Tuffy and Harry and all of us. And then all of a sudden there was a little spat or something that happened between TLC and Discovery. And one of the executives said, I don't like the format. And they wanted to change the format to what I call a game show format, where they have the 3 teams competing. And then the second series of the original Pitmasters never happened, but we thought it was going to happen. I mean, and then all of a sudden, no, they changed it. And so that was kind of strange. But I thought that was the coolest thing. And it's a shame that they didn't stick with it, because I thought, and not just because I was on it, it was just that I really thought that was more exciting to watch than, the competition type format, with just a few teams.
Yeah, I mean, I've said time and time again over the course of the show as it relates to barbecue television, that particular season was really, in my opinion, the one that resonates with folks because look, I mean, I understand it. If you're just a general person, you don't know anything about competition barbecue, you see these teams, I guess natural assumption would be Lee Ann's going to win, or Myron's going to win, or Tuffy's going to win. Well, guess what? In competition barbecue, the 5 that they're featuring might not do jack shit, and they might not do jack shit all year, which
that's correct.
Is just a part of it, right? There were the bigger reason that Deadliest Catch or Kardashians or some of these other reality shows are popular is because, yeah, I mean, Deadliest Catch does fishing every single fucking time. I get it. But the audience is building a relationship with Sig of the for whatever, the Norway ship or this other guy and this other ship. They like their personalities. They're building their own relationships. They're buying in. They see value there. And fishing just is a part of it. And I thought they could have explored that more. Yeah, certainly barbecue would be a part of it. But if they won or not really shouldn't be that big
I
of
agree
a
with you.
motivating factor. It should be, I am buying in on Lee Ann or I'm buying in on Tuffy and going to the game show. To me, and I'm somebody that hates all forms of cooking game shows, Chopped, the whatever Barbecue Pitmasters was. So I thought it was a shame. And now it's even a double shame knowing that they had you guys in potentially for a season 2.
Yeah, it really was. And it, the, I do like Michael Simon's, Barbecue USA, because they're kind of doing a similar format where they're following a few people around. But yeah, with having, I don't know how many shows we did, 6 or 7. We were starting to build characters and followers, and they do re-air that show still. And I have people all the time that remember specifics about shows, and they'll say, did your power really go out in Alabama? Is Myron really such a jerk? And it's like, people want to know what the other people were like on the show because they had that interest. It wasn't like, oh, well, I'm sorry you didn't win, in, Dover, Delaware. It was more of like, did that really happen? They were more interested in the story of it all.
Lee Ann Whippen joining us here on the show. There seems to be a lot of the same people on TV shows back then, even, I guess, currently, depending on what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is? And why do you think you are consistently asked to go on TV?
Well, I'm, one of the few women barbecue people out there. Also the fact that I was competing with my kids, my dad occasionally, so that there was the family element there. I was successful in barbecue, been doing it a long time. And I don't know, sometimes I can be a little tough, and, TV likes that when, you're a little tough or you have a strong personality. So personalities are, you got to have a personality to be on TV. You can't be super boring because otherwise nobody's going to watch you. So obviously the producers and the people that, are looking at you when they do the interviews, they're trying to see all of that because that's what sells. They're trying to make money, so they want to have big personalities.
And you've had success on TV, and it's certainly been fun to watch. Recently, last year, you get on with Pit Boss as a spokesperson or ambassador, whatever the term is these days. They've had some really tough times along with some of the bigger pellet cooker companies because of how they planned during the best 2 years of the live fire business, layoffs all over. Are you worried about where you might stand going forward as the market starts to correct itself?
Well, I think it will correct itself. I think this is just a dip in, it's the economy. It's just everything. And it will come around again. I'm confident of that. I do feel as if Pit Boss is a strong enough brand and has enough family value and smarts about them that they'll get out of it. So no, I'm really not worried, but I just hate to see all these grilling companies going through a tough time right now because it's not just Pit Boss, it's everybody. And I've done interviews with people and it's the same thing, but hopefully we'll get out of it. And you just have to keep going. You can't give up or woe is me. You just keep going.
Are you co-hosting a radio show with Jeff Tracy?
I am. I'm co-host on Barbecue Nation. So I do that once a week, which has really been a lot of fun because I get to speak with people, like yourself who you might not run across, in whatever you do, but you get a chance to speak with them, and talking with them is really a lot of fun. And if I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't meet half the people that I do. So I really enjoy it.
Aren't you the talent on there? I like Jeff, but bring you on as a co-host on a barbecue show, and I think he's got to be second fiddle.
No, not at all. He is the host of the show, and I'm the co-host, and I take his lead every time, and we work together getting guests. So we do talk with each other on who we think should be on the show, and he values my opinion and I value his, and it's been really nice. It's not super time consuming, it's only an hour and a half a week, so it's been kind of fun.
How do you connect in? Do you have some type of digital ISDN or something like that?
No, we just I have the microphone and we have headphones, and then we just zoom in. We zoom everybody in.
Nice.
Yeah. We tried a couple other things and it didn't work that well, but the Zoom actually is working all right.
Lee Ann, last question before I let you go tonight. Doing a little due diligence on Lee Ann Whippen, and I did not actually, everybody's going to say I'm full of shit here, but I was not looking for this, but somehow in some search, this showed up second in return. According to networthpost.org, Lee Ann Whippen has a net worth of $6 million. True?
So if you look at that tomorrow, it will probably change to 1.5 million. And then if you look at it the next day, it'll jump to 3.7. So I've had people tell me that, and then I'll go and look and I'll say, no, it only says I have 1.5 million. And then I'll look the next day. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm up to, 8.9 million. This is amazing. And I don't know where they get those numbers from, but I am not worth whatever you said it was.
I have worse news than that, Lee Ann.
Okay.
Mutual friend of ours, Dr. Barbecue, according to the same website, net worth $28 million. He's a mogul. I had no idea.
And I will tell you that again is not true.
It's unbelievable. I can't believe it. Look, Lee Ann Whippen has spent way more time than she probably should have here this evening. But look,
it's been great.
I mean, we've known each other for 16 years doing it like this. At some point, we'll probably meet each other in person, and it'll be great. But,
yes,
following your career has been great. Having you on the show and talking about the happenings or what's hot or getting a retrospective like this is an absolute joy for me. And I'm so happy that you're in the Barbecue Hall of Fame. Certainly well-deserved.
Thank you, Greg. I really, really appreciate it. And I wish you continued success on your show. And I know we will be talking again.
No doubt. Please give my best to Jeff Tracy, your co-host.
I will.
All right.
I appreciate it.
There she is, Lee Ann Whippen right there. Pulling almost a full hour as we get the Lee Ann Whippen origin story. And wow, I mean, that's a lot of stuff that at Guam, writing for the island recipes, the kid, going to a farm. She was going to be a pilot. Unbelievable. Great stuff. I mean, this is why we do the origin stories, so we can really dig in and learn a little bit more than what you think you know, but I guarantee not a lot of people knew that Lee Ann Whippen's original passion wasn't to be one of the best barbecuers out there. It was to fly planes. Her dad was flying planes. Spectacular stuff, and we certainly appreciate her taking all this time to do it. All right, one more piece of business to do before we call it an evening here. And it's my good pal, David McDowell, over at davidleans.com/BBQ. I've been talking to you about it. Now we're on week 6. Here we go. Guess who's not fat anymore? Not me. Following the eating regimen, knowing what I'm going to eat each and every day. Morning, I can do this. Lunchtime/snack time, I can do this. Dinner time, I can do this. The recipe's there. The menu's there. We can talk about other options. When I started it, I think I was tipping in at 185, 186. Where are we at as we start week 6 of the program? 171 pounds. That's right. Here's the good news. It's not just bullshit weight loss. It's a lifestyle change. It's eating changes. It's making good decisions. And then it's sticking to it. It's real easy to just decide to blow it off for a day or a week. But
I know I have to fill out that sheet every day. I know I have to be honest, because if I'm not honest, it's a waste of my money that I'm paying him, and I am paying him. And we're there to talk about it every Monday. What are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? This past week, I followed the eating regimen to a T. Very few cheats, and when they were cheats, it was just because I wasn't in a position to eat exactly what I wanted. I had to do something off the cuff. But instead of just blowing it out of the water, I'm looking over the menu and saying, I can take some of this chicken, or I can take this dish and only eat half of the rice or half the chicken or turkey, whatever it is. The best thing, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. Now, yes, I'm mixing in my cardio, of course, but he's helped me with some weightlifting routines. Come on, you gotta be taking advantage of this. I know some of you guys are fat. Stop it. You don't have to be fat. Don't listen to those people that say, never trust a skinny cook. You wouldn't eat Lee Ann stuff? You wouldn't eat Tuffy stuff? Byron Mixon's leaner than he's ever been? Give me a break. Take advantage of it right now. DavidLeans.com/BBQ. David Leans, Leans, DavidLeans.com/BBQ. Sign up right now. Tell him I told you. Actually, he'll know it's me, because only the people that know have access to that website, davidleans.com/BBQ. We are back to wrap the show right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Whole packers, full racks, legs and thighs, injecting butts. If you've never heard this before, you might think you found the best XXX show ever. Let's get back to the most homoerotic host out there today, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. We thank Lee Ann Whippen for giving us an extended set of interview minutes, carrying over here into the second hour, half past. So we will go ahead and call it a day right here. Looking through some of the instant chat here specifically, I'll throw a couple up here. Here is Rick's Barbecue Specialties. Chit, I haven't been 186 since the 6th grade. Come on, Rick. I'm not even 186 anymore. I'm 171 pounds. Also, Rick coming in with the standard run, exercise, workout, die anyway. Well, you're right. I'd rather be fluffy and marinated. No doubt about it. Chicken Fried Barbecue weighing in, who is a new TV star on Barbecue USA. Did you win that contest, Chicken Fried? I think you won that. I watched it. I'm in shape. Round is a shape. Absolutely. All I'm saying is, if you want to change, you now have access to a support system that can help facilitate change. Wanting to do it and then hoping you're going to do it, that never works out. Never works out. All right, let's get out of here. All the way back in the first hour, it was Meathead dispelling myths about water pans. Then we talked about drip pans and why you would want to use those. And then we ended about using mayo as a binder on brisket. Chicken Fried, if you're ever in a TV contest again or whatever the hell that is, if anybody is going to watch you do brisket, use mayo as a binder on brisket, and then make sure you give credit to me for starting the trend, because Smokin' Joe's Barbecue Pit is doing it, and so is Deuce Raymond, and so is Dick Pace. We're all doing my invention. You should try it next contest. If you win brisket, I'll pay your entry fee. How about that? After Meathead, we talked with the San Antonio Express News food writer and barbecue writer, Chuck Blount. Again, he's tripling down on the potential success of smoked burgers. I don't know about that. I'm leery, but he's tripling down. And then second hour was all Lee Ann Whippen all the time. Yes, Rick Barbecue Specialties, Dick Pace.
He's a TikTok sensation. Look him up. I'm not kidding. He's claiming he's the one that started mayo as a binder on brisket, but Dickie Paste is wrong. Wrong. So we thank Lee Ann Whippen for breaking it all down in the origin story that she did for us. Very fun, very exciting. If you're just tuning in now, don't worry. You will get the full replay on Thursday when it's released. Big show planned for you next week. Susie Bullock and Todd Bullock are in. Also, stand by. I will tell you who's in next week. Why can't I remember? Oh, I think I said Mike Lang. Mike Lang is in next week. Stephen Reichland. How do I forget Stephen Reichland? Shame on me. Barbecue Hall of Famer. And Susie and Todd Bullock in the second hour. We're lining up a fourth interview segment as well, so stay tuned for that. So, how do I always leave you? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. Until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.
Sam the Cooking Guy, and you're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Some call him a fool, some even call him a douchebag. But I say Greg Rempe is the greatest thing to happen to barbecue since caveman.